you're thinking about living in Virginia's beautiful mountains and valleys, but
you don't want to live in large towns like Harrisonburg, Waynesboro, and Stanton.
So in this final video,
Finally!
In this final video in our series of the towns between Harrisonburg and Stanton and Waynesboro, we're going to rank 4 towns just north of Waynesboro. Those 4 towns are...
Well, the first one's Dooms,
Dooms,
Crimora, Grottoes, and Port Republic.
And if you hang around to the end of this video, I'm going to do what I've done in the other videos, but this time, instead of summarizing each town in 5 words or less, I'm going to do it in 3 words or less.
We'll see.
So hang around in the video so you can find out what that is. But we're going to get started right now.
Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here?
If this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about living, eating, sleeping, playing, anything here in Virginia's beautiful mountains and valleys, then just click on that subscribe button and touch that bell icon so you can be the first to be notified about all the current real estate market information here in Virginia's beautiful mountains and valleys. Hi, my name's Stefan.
And I'm Leslie.
And we get phone calls and emails every day from folks just like you and you and you who are looking to sell their home here in Virginia or to make a move to Virginia or just simply moving across town here in Virginia. And we absolutely love it.
We do.
So whether you're looking to make a move in
days or 90,
just pick up the phone and give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email. That information's all in the description down below, and we'll be happy to help you sell your home or make your move here in Virginia as smooth as possible. So as we mentioned, today we're going to take a look at the towns of Dooms, Crimora, Grottoes, and Port Republic, but we often get asked about the cost of living.
Yeah, and how does it compare to other towns?
Yeah, and so just kind of want to compare that. We can't compare them all, but here's Portland, Maine, for example. If you live up in Portland, Maine, or in that area there, you're going to see that if you made $100,000 in Portland, Maine, to have the same economic level quality of life down here in Grottoes, for example, you're only looking at about $82,000 a year. So that's a significant cut. Matter of fact, it's about 18% cheaper to live here overall in this area in Grottoes than it is in Portland, Maine. And look at housing. Housing, 27% less. And so you can either spend the same amount of money and get a larger house, or you can spend less money and you can get a house that's probably about like what you have where you're in Portland, Maine. And you can see some of the other statistics there as well. And of course, you know what? It's not just out of state as well, even in the state. And of course, we all know that Northern Virginia and places like that, it's much more expensive to live there. But even in Winchester, which is on the north end of the Shenandoah Valley, it's still cheaper to live in Winchester than it is to live in Grottoes, for example. Now I get it. Winchester's a larger town, Portland's a larger town. They may have more things to do there, but still, overall, you're going to look at about 7% less for a house just an hour and a half down the road in Grottoes than you would in Winchester. So just some interesting facts and letting you know the cost of living in Grottoes and in this area is below the national average.
He likes his numbers.
So, but that being said, I also want to talk about internet availability, and because I know you get asked that question all the time.
Yeah, because we have a lot of people who are buying homes who are now working from home, and they need high-speed internet. So our biggest carrier around here is Xfinity, and that is also known as Comcast to some of you who may be outside the area. But upload speed, download speed, it is about, what would you say?
It's about, well, they say it's supposed to be about 1,200 download and 35 upload. And so, yeah.
But the main things to look at is along the main drives that people are going to take along the interstate. Those are the areas that's going to have the better speeds. And again, when you're looking at this graph that Stefan has, the mountainous areas, some of them are starting to get broadband in them and some of them aren't. So this isn't fail safe, you know, tried and true, but it at least gives you a very good estimation of where you're going to get better internet speeds.
Yeah, and pretty much wherever the towns are, like I said, around, you can see here where the red circles are right along Highway 340 there. You're getting a good feed there, and along Interstate 81 over where Fort Defiance is, and of course the larger towns. But like I say, it doesn't mean that they don't have it out in the other areas. It just means that it may not have the same speed in some of those areas. So it's something you definitely want to look at. If that's an important thing to you, you definitely want to look at it before purchasing a house. But
Much street is going on in these
Yeah,
houses anymore.
but you're probably going to be able to find something here in the area. So, well, that being said, let's go ahead. Let's start ranking the homes. And of course, being real estate agents, I guess it's most of the time.
Okay.
Being real estate agents, it's probably pretty important to just talk about what's the average home price in
Right.
these areas. And so what I've done is broken it down to the last 10 years. So it's not just 1 year, because you could have a fluke. One town might be higher than the other. So we've gone over the last 10 years. And of course, the numbers that you're going to see are lower than what the houses are priced for right now,
Yes.
because it's an average over 10 years and they've gone up in time.
So first one we're going to talk about is about dooms, and we're going to talk about the zip codes. So the main town in that zip code is Dooms, and the average price is around 190,000, and over a 10-year period of time, it's about 118 homes that have sold.
Yeah, it's a fairly small area, but yet still
Small.
118 homes have sold in that area. Now, the next town up on the list as we go up is Crimora, and Crimora actually has 2 zip codes. The larger of the 2 is 24431, which you can see here on the slide. But there's also a very small portion of that is in the Waynesboro zip code along with Dunes and at the 22980. And there's actually a lot of homes that have sold in that zip code. There's a couple of large neighborhoods in that area, which I actually in our blog video, I go in and talk about Best Review and Northwood, those neighborhoods. There's a lot of homes in there. And so, but over the last 10 years, you can see the average sale price of a home there in the Crimora zip codes have sold for about $180,000.
Okay. Next up is Grottoes. So that is the 2441. Sorry, numbers are not
Missed a 4 there.
24441.
There you go.
So we have about 901 homes that have sold in that zip code
Very active.
for an average price of around 213,000. So not bad.
Yeah, it is the largest geographical area. Of course, it also has a larger town. The largest town of these is Grottoes. So, but that being said, that leaves Port Republic. Port Republic, although the area is pretty large, it's mostly a rural area, and only over the last 10 years, only over a little over 100 homes have sold for an average of about $312,000. And no doubt in this area, there's probably been some larger farms that have sold with some acreage and things like that, which has probably driven that price up. Of course, also it's a historical area as well.
Right.
And so that's some of those homes that sell are, because of their historical value, have sold for a greater price as well. So if we go ahead and we rank them up and we give them the ribbons of award here from the most expensive to the least expensive, of course, that puts Port Republic as the most expensive,
Right.
followed by Grottoes, then Dunes and Crimora being the cheapest, most economical home sales over the last 10 years. And that surprised me a little bit. I thought
surprising.
it surprised me because I thought Dunes might take that, because there's a certain section of Dunes that has some homes that were built in the 50s and 60s, and there's some smaller homes, and so I just thought that area might be a little bit less expensive than Crimora, but apparently not, and so that was kind of interesting for me to see that once I laid all that out. So in addition to knowing about the cost of a house, it's also important to know about the build dates of a house. It kind of gives you a flavor for kind of what the towns look like a little bit without actually being in the town. And of course, there's different styles of homes in most all of these towns. But so look at the build dates of these homes starting in Dunes.
All right, so Doones's peak was in the 1980s. And that's kind of important to know, because a lot of buyers are going to want to know, when was their house built? They only want houses built in certain decades. So over a 30-year span of time in Dunes, we see a peak at 540 homes being built in that decade.
Yeah, and even around those 3 decades, just a really, really big time. Of course, yeah, the homes that were built that were earlier than that, you can see it before the 1940s.
Right.
And what's interesting, when you go into Crimora, this gives you an idea of how rural Crimora used to be, because you look in before the 1940s, and only about 65 homes were even that were built in that area. But if you go into the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, that's when Crimora had a big house housing boom with 300 homes plus being built in the 80s and then on through the 90s. And so Crimora has become a little bit more industrialized because it kind of on that northeast side of Waynesboro, like where Dunes is industrialized as well. And so, but like I say, it's still a lot of places that are very rural. It's not like an industrial city or anything like that, but it does have more houses in it now than what it did back 40, 50 years ago.
Right. The next up is Grottoes. So we have a total population in that zip code of about 6,100 people. So we're coming up in the population, and there again, we're seeing this boom of growth in homes being built in the 1980s at 540 homes being built in the 1980s there. So you're seeing this, the shoulders on both sides of it, those decades on both sides. We're in the 400s. And then again, like Stefan said, earlier in 1939 and before, you see this large boom in homes being built there.
Yeah, that's interesting because that shows you that town center. There's been a town there in that area before that time. And then there's Port Republic, which is really a rural community. And as you can see, there was a lot of homes stretched out over the zip code that were built before the 1940s. Still are a lot of homes. That's why it's a historical district and a very historical area. But they did have a little bit of a housing boom back in the 70s and in the 80s as well. About 200-300 homes were built during that time as well. But it just gives you a little bit of an idea about kind of the towns, maybe a little bit different feel in each one of the towns according to their home build dates. We always get asked about schools, and I'm not going to take a long time to talk about this because I encourage you to go back and look at our map video where I go on and talk a little more in depth about each one of the schools and the districts that they're in. But because we're in 4 different towns that are in 2 different counties, we're actually in 2 different school districts, the Augusta Public Schools and the Rockingham County Public Schools.
Right.
And both of them have better than average rankings here in the state, with the Rockingham County schools having the better of the 2. So if you look here in the elementary schools, you're going to see the different rankings of some of the schools that children may go to, as well as the middle schools as well. And finally, the high school that each one would attend. And of course, there's crossover, like in Grottoes, for example. Some folks might go down to Fort Defiance because the county line kind of runs right through Grottoes, a little corner of it. And so there's overlap there, but that's one of the things, at least you have an idea about the schools in these areas. And so because Rockingham, according to niche.com, is ranked a little bit higher, I'd have to say that in second place, I would consider Dunes and Crimora to be in second place, and then Grottoes and Port Republic. But like I said, both of them are above average. You just think that Grottoes and Port Republic, for most of their students in that area, they're going to get the nod for, according to niche.com, having the better education. So let's talk about just towns, and this really gives you an idea in their population of kind of an area we're talking about, stretched over 30, 40 miles worth here. We were only talking about maybe 12,000 people, 13,000 in the entire area. The reason I put 11,362 plus was because there's that 22980 part of that zip code that it's kind of hard to figure out how much of that is in there. So there's definitely going to be another 1,000 or probably 2,000 people in there. But like I say, between the towns and the zip codes, you're only looking at about 12,000, 13,000 people. When you look at the town themselves, okay, Port Republic, 399 people, really small town. And moving right up the list, you got
in third place we have Dunes at 1191.
And then you got Crimora at 2159, and the winning, as she's already mentioned,
Grottoes, 2886.
Yeah, probably just under 3,000 people there in Grottoes. So when we talk about Grottoes being the largest town, it's still a very small town. So all of these towns, like I say, when you get further away from Waynesboro, they're going to become more rural, and it really is a nice area out in some of those areas, right up along the Blue Ridge Mountains there.
The views are amazing.
Yeah. So let's talk about one of our favorite topics. Let's talk about the median age. So go ahead from oldest to youngest.
All right. From the oldest, you're going to find that in Port Republic at about 45 and a half years old.
Yeah, and then you got Grottoes after that, which is just a little bit younger. Of course, they only sit about 3 or 4 miles across from each other.
They do. It's interesting. Dunes at 38.2.
Yep, and Crimora is actually the youngest. Again, I thought that might be flip-flopped as well. but it's not. And Crimora has an average age of about 32 years old. So just kind of some interesting information, give you a little idea about that. So let's talk about education, and we've already talked about the schools. Let's talk a little bit about how many people go on to get a post-high school education.
Right. So in last place we have Dunes at 6.8% of the population there.
Yep. Steps up just a little bit in Crimora at 9.3.
And then Grottoes at 18.5, so it's a larger jump, almost double.
And then more than doubled is Port Republic, a rural area, yet very highly educated when it comes to secondary education. So let's go to most rural, okay? Probably not a surprise there.
No.
Dunes is the most industrial because it sits so close to Waynesboro. Now the next two, I could make an argument. Crimora and Grottoes. We said Grottoes was the largest, but I think Crimora is probably, because it's proximity to Waynesboro, to me it just feels a little bit more industrial than it does rural. So it doesn't really. I'm going to give the nod to Crimora being in third and Grottoes being in second. You have a really small town atmosphere in Grottoes, which you just absolutely love. And then of course you have the rest of that huge zip code, which is very, very rural as well. And then last but not least, Port Republic. I mean, come on, 399 people in the downtown area of Port Republic. So, and it's definitely the most rural when it comes to that. So, talk about parks. If we're going to go to a park, where are you going to go in Dunes?
Place of fall, Dunes.
Yep.
We don't have any place to go.
Really, there's not. Yeah, there's not really much of that. And again, probably because it's so close to Waynesboro, and you do have some parks literally just a couple minutes down the road, Basic City Park, things like that you can go to, which are very, very close to Dunes. Port Republic does have a really small park in it, right along the South River there, and it is Bradburn Park, and has a pavilion there. So, but Crimora.
Two. So Crimora Park and then Crimora Ballpark. So
Right.
why is there a ballpark?
Well, because it sits right next to Crimora Park, and that's where the kids go to play ball. So, but it's really neat. It sits right along the South River there as well, and you watch your kids play ball and enjoy some time in the park as well. But if you've never been to Grottoes, Grottoes is really neat. It's got a couple big parks in it. You've got the Painter Park, and you've got Grand Caverns Park. The Grand Caverns, they actually have a park as well. A lot of stuff to do there, swimming pool, all sorts of things. Talk more about it in our map video as well. And so for both of those two parks, in addition to that, they got ball fields in Grottoes as well, in Grottoes as well. And it's actually home of the Grottoes Cardinals, which is part of the Rockingham County Baseball League. So,
Which Stephen talked about in another video.
Yeah, I'm going to do it a little bit more once. See, it's about 3 or 4 weeks away when the season starts. So we're going to get into some of those games, and we'll show you some of those games when we go to them. So restaurants.
All right, Stephen, you like the restaurant?
I do like restaurants.
Okay. So we love trying new places to go out and eat. But unfortunately, in Port Republic, it's coming in at 4th place with 0 restaurants as well as Dunes.
Yeah.
So both of those towns, they just don't have new restaurants to go to.
Not a whole lot to eat out there, but Crimora does have a village pizza. And then of course you got Grottoes, again, the largest of the towns. You got a wood fire oven, you've got a Subway, you got a Shunzing restaurant, and you've got Ciro's Flying Pizza. See if you can catch it. I don't know, but when you're in town. But one of the ones I talked about again in our map video, to take a look at that, is Little Gus's, and just a neat Greek American restaurant right in the middle of town where you just kind of go and chill. And so, like I say, these are really, really small towns, as you can see by population, and some of them because they sit so close to the cities, city of Waynesboro, they just don't have, those things, and so you're going to be driving into town to get those. Kind of similar when it comes to shopping.
All right, let's talk about shopping. Port Republic and Crimora. Crimora has the Dollar General. Port Republic has nothing. So
doesn't everybody have a Dollar General?
You're going to see them in a lot of different towns around here. Dollar General.
Yep. And then you got Dunes, and Dunes is kind of similar to Crimora, really. And there's there's an antique store there, and a thrift shop, and there's a motorcycle shop there as well, Wayne Cycle Shop. And so, again, a couple of little things there, but really not anything that you would necessarily think of like, I'm going to go into town to shop for clothing or things like that. And then, of course, the one that has the most is the largest of the towns, and that's Grottoes. And they've got not only the Dollar General,
but a Family Dollar.
but a Family Dollar too. And they got a little Ace Hardware in there as well, and they have a Rite Aid pharmacy. And there, and like I say, there's other things that are there, and in some of these towns as well, different kinds of stores. I talked about a woodworking store in the town of Crimora back in that video as well. So like I say, they're just small towns, not necessarily destination shopping places, but at least it gives you an idea of what's in those towns in case you need something. So
Go to Dollar General to pick up whatever you gotta have the last.
that is true. That is true. So okay, so let's go ahead. What about things to do?
Right.
So Crimora. I mean, I just don't see a lot to do in Crimora. You know, if I'm wrong on that, please comment in the video. Tell me what is there? What do you need in Crimora? And I'd love to know, because I'd love to share it with everybody, and I'd love to know myself. So
yeah. Republic Museum there.
yeah, I talk about that. A lot of history in there. In the home, the home was built between 1835 and 1845. They carried the body of Confederate General Turner Ashby after he was killed near Harrisonburg. He was transported there, and just a whole lot about the history of Port Republic. And please look at that map video; it tells you a lot more about that. So, but also you got dunes, which if you're a racing fan, you're going to love dunes because they got the East Side Speedway. They got an asphalt track there, and they got a dirt track. The asphalt track is a straight track for racing rods and dragsters and things like that, and then the dirt track for other vehicles. And I would also say dunes gets a lot of the things to do because you're so close to Waynesboro.
You are.
And there's a lot to do there in Waynesboro.
And first place, Grottoes. Larger population, more things to do. So again, it's the Cardinals baseball team there, as well as the Grand Caverns. And they have two parks associated with the Grand Caverns. If you've not toured the Grand Caverns.
Yeah, they have Grand Caverns, which has Grand Caverns Park, and then Painter Park that we just talked about. And I'd like to say, like Leslie said, if you haven't toured Grand Caverns, that's a really neat place to go. Historical. Again, I talked more about that in the map video. Please look at that map video. There's a lot in it. It's long, but look at the map video. You'll learn a lot about these towns, as well as some of the homes in the towns as well. So,
okay, here we go, people. Towns explained, stuff in 3 words or less.
3 words or less.
Can we do it?
Well, yeah, since I made the video, probably did, right? So, yes.
I need to know that.
That's right. 3 words or less. Dunes. Okay. It is.
Saying that word.
I do. It's just fun to say dunes. So, I would say industrial Waynesboro suburb. Okay. Now that doesn't mean there's huge factories right in Dunes, but that's kind of the feel that you get as you drive through that town. Crimora, I think it's a town in transition. Yeah, a transition town. You're coming out of that industry and you're getting out more into the country. And there's no really town center there in Crimora, but I would say a transition town. Grottoes is an easy one. Small town living. I mean, it is the picture of small town USA. It really is. I mean,
since it's hyphenated.
It's 2 words, small town, but you can count it as 3 this time. I don't care. So, small town living. It really is. Grottoes is a neat little place. And then Port Republic. Could have said it in 1 word, but why not say it in 3? Since I had 3 words to use. History, history, history. A lot of history in Port Republic, especially there at the Port Republic Museum. So. But like I say, with that being said, I hope this has been a little bit different way to describe the towns to you, especially if you're out of the area, but maybe even if you live here in the area. You know, sometimes you don't always get into these towns, and you know, and of course,
we've had people around here say, "Oh, I didn't know that."
Yeah, kind of fun. And probably goes back to our school teachers' days. I love to tell on myself, but it's neat to share information with people and to give an idea of what things are like, and of course, you know, when it comes to selling homes as well, that's an important part of selling your home is in some cases telling the story about your home and understanding the town that your home is in and how to best market that. And you know, that's why I say it really is helpful.
When you see the listing descriptions of any of the listings that I have, it tells a story.
Yeah. And that's why I say, give us a call, you know, give Leslie a call, give me a call and let us know how we can help, you know, whether it's selling your home or purchasing a home, and we'll help you do that research and help you find the right price for your home and help you understand what it is you should be looking for if you've never bought a home before, or maybe you're experienced with having bought many homes, but still it'll help you to sell your home or to buy a home as stress-free as possible. That's our goal. So.
That's our goal.
So with that being said, we ranked 4 more towns, and if you disagree, let us know in the comments. Tell me why.
Information, let us know.
Yeah. We're always open to those comments and that information. Let us know so that we can better help others. So, but until next time, like we always say at the end of every video, until next time, we'll see you around town.